Senator from Vermont.
Mr. President, I would just add to what Senator Reid and Senator Durbin and Senator Levin have said. The 60 vote is a filibuster. It is to block this. Now, we speak of how long people have been here. I came here, President Ford was president. Served with President Ford, President Carter, President Reagan, President George H.W. Bush, President William Jefferson Clinton, President George W. Bush, and now President Obama. At no time with any of those presidents prior to President Obama was there ever a request for a 60 vote, a 60-member vote to raise the debt limit ceiling. Certainly, with the number of times we raised the debt limit under President Ronald Reagan, not one single Republican suggested we needed 60 votes. It is important enough for that. Not once under President George H.W. Bush, not once under President George W. Bush did a single Republican say it's so important that we must have a 60-vote margin. And yet, all of a sudden, with President Obama, the whole criteria changes. Suddenly, the rules that were good enough for Republicans with a Republican president are suddenly to be changed with this president. Mr. President, the American public, Republican or Democratic, can see through that. This is a different standard. We're saying that this president must follow different rules than every president before him, Republican or Democratic. There is no way that can be considered fair. No way that can be considered anything but a gimmick. As unfortunately, the partisan faction first manufactured this debt limit crisis, and now they continue to prevent a bipartisan solution. An unwillingness to compromise and find a bipartisan solution has led us to the brink. The United States of America is now just 3 days away from defaulting on its obligation, and I'd remind senators, for the first time in the history of this country, and for the first time in the history of this country, senators are demanding we have to have a supermajority vote to stop that from happening. That is not responsible. We are needlessly risking financial turmoil throughout this great country, and it would send ripple effects worldwide. A temporary solution is no solution at all. It would undermine the stability that our economy needs to grow. So now is the time to set aside partisan bickering, pass a bill. It's a time for the grown-ups in the room to take over and reach a bipartisan solution to the debt ceiling, as has been done every time in the 37 years I've been here. A my way or no way faction, the other bodies, had no qualms about playing Russian roulette with our entire economy and with every American family in it. Regrettably, as we saw so clearly again yesterday, the House leadership's response to win this faction's vote has simply been to shift the bill even further away from helpfulness or reality. Everybody knows that the House debt bill written under this duress was a sham, with no chance of passing and with no chance of averting a debt catastrophe. On Friday, at the finish line to vote in the debt bill, House leaders added to their package the idea of amending the U.S. Constitution with a budget amendment. It's done as a desperate attempt to win a few more votes. Now, this is not the time for bumper sticker politics. It's time for leadership and bipartisanship. Now, many in this body recall, as I do, the period just 2 short decades ago when we were able to not only balance the federal budget, but to create budget surpluses that were on their way to paying off the national debt. Now, on the one hand, we had people who said, well, let's pass a constitutional amendment for some time, a decade or 2 decades in the future. We stood up and actually voted to balance the budget. Not a single Republican voted to balance the budget. They talk about it, but not a single Republican voted to balance the budget. We had to actually have the Vice President Gore vote in this body because it was a tie vote. But it balanced the budget. It created enormous surpluses. It started paying down the national debt Over 20 million new jobs were created, and President Clinton was able to give a huge surplus to President George W. Bush. Now, unfortunately, decisions made by a new administration and ratified by a new Congress squandered the surplus, started once again piling up debt. So this good and great nation does not need the straitjacket of a one-size-fits-all change to our Constitution to do what needs to be done. We've done it. The American people want and need and deserve is a return to wise and disciplined leadership. We need the return of willingness by those of us chosen to serve within the halls of government to cooperate, forge bipartisan solutions. At this point, Majority Leader Reid's debt reduction package of $2.2 trillion in spending cuts is Congress's best chance to avoid a default and prevent a disastrous credit rating downgrade. Unlike the House plan, the Reid solution is an invitation to consensus. The Senate solution incorporates spending reductions reached in bipartisan negotiations, yields greater overall budget savings sooner than the House proposal. But it also saved the country the ordeal of going through this torment, again, just a few months from now. And we just seen what this debate, as we take longer and longer to do what we need to do, we watch the stock market just crash this week alone. As this calamity has unfolded in slow motion, it's been smothering the chance for action in nearly all other national priorities, from jobs to national security to air traffic control. The congressional deadlock has prevented passage of a routine renewal of the Federal Aviation Administration's charter to operate. Today, the Senate could be considering the American Defense Act. That's a bipartisan, bicameral bill ready to move across the finish line, creates hundreds of thousands of jobs, and unleashes American innovation, does not add a penny to the deficit. Instead of acting on constructive, necessary priorities, we're stuck playing a dangerous game with our economy. The deadline for default will not change. I commend Leader Reid for his willingness and desire to work in the spirit of compromise with the Republican leader and others to find a bipartisan solution to halt this perilous march to the edge of the financial cliff. The American people want this solved. All American people do. Now, with a fair solution, through the give and take of our representative government, not by some extra special vote, but just vote it up or vote it down. And I'm confident if we work together, Congress will avert this looming man-made economic calamity. It's late, but it's not yet too late for Republicans and Democrats to come together for the sake of our country in fashioning a bipartisan solution to raise the debt limit and reduce our long-term debt and give our economy the long-term foundation to prosper. I've had the privilege to represent Vermont in the United States Senate for 37 years. I've been blessed enough to witness many times when the Senate's shown its remarkable ability to rise up to reflect the conscience of the nation. I believe that now is such a time for Democrats and Republicans in the Senate, for the good of the country, to once again rise to the occasion, to have us be the conscience of the nation. I yield the floor.